Now let's talk about some of the most popular processes you'll apply to audio files. And before I do that, I'm just going to make sure that I reveal my ribbon at all times. That way you'll be able to see all of these different commands without it hiding itself. So let's first talk about changing gain, and because that's something that you're going to be doing quite a bit of. So if you wanted to adjust the overall gain of an audio file, just make sure that you don't have a selection in the waveform, or that you make a controller command A to select all of it. But I'm going to deselect that right now and just click on the gain command. When I do, I get a dialog box that will ask me by how much I want to add or subtract a certain amount of decibels. So if I were to apply 3 dB of gain to this audio file, then it's going to increase the gain of the file. Or if I wanted to drop it down, let's go to a factory preset of -3 dB and click Apply. It's going to drop 3 dB over the entire audio file. If I wanted to do that to just one selection, let's drop that down 6 dB and then click Apply, and that's going to apply that gain change to just the selection. I'm going to type undo a few times to get us back to our original audio file. Let's talk about a few other things you can do. You could flip the entire audio file around, which is called reversing, by clicking the reverse button, and that will flip it around backwards. So now it's going to be playing in reverse. And it starts to sound like a Jimi Hendrix record. So I'm going to type Controller Command Z to undo that. Let's talk about applying fades, and we did that in the last tutorial, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but I'm going to move my cursor right here, type Shift and Home to make that selection from the cursor to the beginning of the audio file, and click on the fade in. I'm going to do the same exact thing at the end of the audio file by making either selection or by moving my cursor and typing Shift and End, and then clicking fade out. But let's talk about some of the other types of fades that you can apply, because you'll notice that both the fade in and fade out have little drop-down menus. So you can choose from 7 different preset fade curves: linear, sinus, square root, sinusoid, logarithmic, exponential, or exponential plus. So if you wanted a very gentle sort of fade and not one that's mathematically perfect as far as the default linear selection, you could choose sinusoid. And when you do that, not only does it apply the fade to the selection that you've made, but you'll notice that it also retained that curve so that the next time you hit the fade out button, it will apply a sinusoidal fade out. And the same is true of the fade in. So if you wanted an exponential plus curve as your fade in, then you could make a selection, click the fade button, and it will apply that fade shape to the audio file. I'm going to undo those fades to get back to the original file, and then let's talk about resampling. Now, this particular audio file is at 44.1 kilohertz, and we can verify that by looking at the audio properties down here in the editor. You can see that it's a stereo, 32-bit, 44.1 kilohertz file, or 44,100 hertz. And if I wanted to resample this file to be 48 kilohertz for video production, then I can go to the resample button, and it will bring up a dialog box to allow me to select which audio sample rate I want to use. So I could choose 48 kilohertz right here and click on OK. Now, I'm not going to do that because that tends to screw up my screen capture software, so instead I'm just going to leave that alone. But that's how you would resample an audio file from one sample rate to a different sample rate.